stream, everybody, with visual mode, and we're taking a look at a project that I'm developing for my portfolio, a little case study on a seasonal drop for Nike. Now, I've chosen 4 shoes that I'm going to be using for this mockup, and what I want to show on here today is basically how I deconstruct the way that the textures are set up for these different models and be so I can modify textures, the colors, etc. Eventually, I would also do a little bit of modeling, but for today, we're only going to be texturing. So let's make sure we're on GPU. I've noticed a little bit slow here on the rendering. Rendering, that is much faster. Okay, so with that, first thing I'm going to do is over, so focus in on our shader editor, and I'll select one material. Typically, I'd want to select the bottom up of the so I can sort of keep track of what it is I'm working for. I can always hit period on the number pad, and if you don't have a number pad, you can relate your number pad here in preferences under input right here, relate number. Alright, so with the soul selected, we'll have the material show up in our shader editor. We just gotta look for the node. See here, actually, if I go over to the material slot right there, there's several materials here. Now, I downloaded this model straight from BlenderKit within the plugin here. So this is really done in a language I can, right? And what we have here are just basic principal BSDF nodes with different colors on each, which makes it really easy because which can replace this with really any material. So we're going to pull up a reference in order to pull up the right material. Let's do search for that shoe. Nike Air Max 7. Or quality. Let's add. Alright, so we can see the materials here a bit better. So we have clear, sleek, reflective, and translucent rubber. And then for the very bottom of this, open image tab. So we have a little bit of roughness, the rubber on the sole. It looks to be just like a normal rubber, whereas here on the top of the sole, we have a rubber material that has a more grain to it, a little bit of a noise bump. So let's take a look at this here, and we'll use under. Material. Market, materials, rubber. That's too sleek on reference. That one's noisy enough for the top part, but I'll bring that in later. Now I'm looking for something kind of like that. So I have a little bit of surface section, not as rough. This is kind of perfect. Just a little bit of noise indented in on the material. So I'll go ahead and use that. And note that when I selected this material, I made sure I had that node selected. That was the black color. It doesn't really matter here because I'm just going to take it throughout. But I have black, rubber black material set. It's just a bump map on top of the color. So really we just added in a little bit of visual information. If I were to the rubber, we get that little bit of surface imperfection that we're looking for photorealism. I want to increase size of that bump a little bit, maybe. And we'll increase the scale, decrease the size. So it's a little bit more nuanced. Still number here, and yep, a bit more finer detail size there too. That is looking pretty good. I'm gonna select my light. Search here for light. What's it called? Oh, it came within this. Well, no, that's an. I like that. All in the called area. Select it. Second review. I had an issue. All right. Okay. So next, what I want to do is just copy that over to all the different materials. So I go over to the white, switch this material slot over to rubber black. Hit this button right here in order to create a new material from that one, and I'll call it rubber white. And then all I have to do is change the base color. I'm not going to go pure white. Okay, nice. Now that I see it on the white, go even more. 500. And the of course, I might have to final render. Let's switch back to rubber black. All right, and then yeah, we can continue doing that. Here to white, material, red, rubber, red is fine, material, gray. Perfect. So the model data has stayed exactly the same, but we've switched out all the material slots for an image. All that's left here is to set the proper color. There, red. Okay. This would be a different one. We'll get that. We'll get to that. All right, this material here is just a little bit too basic. So what I want to do is add some sheen to give the surface a little bit of highlight. Besides that, I'm going to base. I want to select that middle portion of the rubber, so I might have to go into wireframe mode here in order to select these cylinders. Take our reference. So that's actually we see here we're getting some reflection on that portion of the rubber. So that's a really smooth and reflective rubber. Open up our rubber search once more. Select something that's pretty smooth, crisp, reflective. Plastic rubber. Okay. We just have to switch color. One looks to nose. Set the color here. Let it darken. Put those just under white. And we're good. Okay, lastly, we need the other rubber on this top portion of the sole, and that's the one where we did want the heavy grain. That's as white as and mess with the texture of the note. Back to a darker color just so I see that level of detail. The Voronoi looks like. This is messy or uneven. We're not using a principled line. It'd be much more photoreal, so we're actually going to switch that out. I'm mixing that with a glossy. Well, I guess this is optimized for cycles. Oops, plug that into facet. Got some math going on. But the Voronoi texture, we're amplifying it and we're turning it from RGB to black and white, and that's plugged into reflection or glossiness, or roughness, that material. Which I can just take that and plug it into the roughness of the principle, normal from that, plug that into the principle. And we can just use that. We can bypass the glossiness. Glossiness now build. There we go. So that's what that was doing. We don't have, yeah, we've got a bump, got some spring. But I'm not getting as much bump. Let's scale it. That's actually done. We need to introduce here a mapping node. I'm gonna, because I have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, I'm gonna hit Control, hold Control, and then click and drag with right click. Oops, got rid of them. Alt, right click. There we go. Alt, and then click and drag with right click. Hit Shift, y'all. So we're actually using two different nodes here. But plug these now. Hold Control, click, and drag with right click. Generally, True Gang. Also, volume's a little low. Oops. I did notice that. I made a little change to my setup here. I don't know why the microphone has gone down a little bit. Do a quick that was painless. No, but we're still the same. Do a quick audio video. Hey there, Ian. Thanks for dropping in the chat. Alright. That should have made me louder. Not yet. How about now? How about now? Hello? Hello? Okay. Getting louder. Alright. That seems to be better. I don't know if it is. Okay. So, where were we? We wanted to introduce mapping node here. Okay. And we're actually going to need. Why are we using this? One is to apply the Voronoi, and one is for the bump. The bump is in from the Fresnel node. That's weird. Actually, I love what I'm seeing right now. Maybe that scale is like I plug in the gen. That's way too bit. Norm if I use. Pretty good. Getting a bump though. Let's add that in. Okay, that broke. Can't use that. What was it using? Normal? Alright. It's a little bit too perfect. Guessing the scale here, 100. I can. All right, I want to see what this is doing. I don't see many after I plugged in this node. I'm going to undo wherever this was supposed to be. Let's take a look at. Yeah, take a look at what the Voronoi texture is doing. I'll hold Control Shift click, and got a Voronoi texture or bump. This is the bump. The bump actually like modeling the. What happens if I so instead of the you know what? Sometimes it might just be better to look for. I think that was a great material to leave as default for it was set up. It wasn't using a principled node. It should render quicker for real time especially. But when it comes to cycles, rather use a principled BSDF and just photorealistic. A bit more control. Okay, there we go. Plastic. Yep, no plastic. Okay, good. You can only really see it there on camera. It increase strength of the normal map. Nope, it's displacement. We can't modify the height. That's coming from the displacement map. Can do multiply or math rather at a math node. Set that to multiply value. That makes it more. We also need, but in actually doing that, I see that it's breaking up the model in triangular faces. So that tells me is if I hit tab and I see this model for what it is, you don't have enough faces for the displacement to really take effect. So if we go here, we do have a subdivision modifier set to Catmull Clark. I'm just going to set that to 4 live right now. Set this like that. And I'll be sure to use more passes in the render. So 4. Bump down the material down to. Okay. Now I've just got to make that the same color black as the soul, or just closer to it. So the base color, you've got an image here, put it in its base color, but that's all good. You can always do mix, like specifically mixed color. Plug that in right into the darker color. Set it not mix, but to multiply and black value. All right, let's bring that. What I wanted to show here is really just kind of how to override. Oh, I can use factor now. Put that to 1 first. Try that. We're still not getting as dark as we. I'm gonna try adding just RGB. What I wanted to show is you can override a color in the base image that's brought in by using. But if all we're doing is setting a color here. Okay. And I gotta turn. I think we're just reflecting more light in the color. Well, the reference is white, and that's right. Black in order to see that detail on the texture. And we'll get into that nitty-gritty of roughness, but if I wanted to make that darker color a little bit more like the bottom of the soul, the thing is, this top piece of rubber is reflecting more light. So if I want to make it more matte, I would do a color ramp, plug that in between. And here, I'm going to kind of punch these colors in to modify the roughness map, overall tone of it. So, lower to the bottom. Got to play with that a little bit and see how that changes how much light reflecting. The range that looks. Okay. Good. So yeah, all these are different color nodes. So we just kind of went through some other materials, and I can always go back to these. Call out and highlight, or at least like have easy access to color. Lighten this up, into something else, or use the eyedropper, reference a different color. I can just pop that in. Okay. Let's take a look at this other model. So this is a model I've worked on for a project before. And as you can see, it actually already comes with a multiply node with two color or two image nodes. What's really happening here, which I thought was really neat, it actually has some shading baked into the model. So if I were to just plug in the base color directly into the material, it's subtle, but it looks less photorealistic. If we saw it, looks less photorealistic. Multiply node that has the ambient occlusion put into it. So again, I'll do Control-Shift-Click, see what that ambient occlusion is. Look at this top portion of the shoe. It's really this right here. A little bit of shading around this Nike swoosh in between of where the different surfaces come together. It's like that little bit of soft shading is actually being baked in, or worked into the material itself. That there. Closer, maybe even I could modify the color rather than actually deeper white by doing mix color like we did before, plugging that in here, color and switching mix to backward. Still going to mix the colors a little bit. You can of course always another color ramp in order to plug in there. And besides just like putting these together, get a lighter color, modify the overall shoe, and also select the swatch here for the black, that lighter. Allow also color. So there we have it with the ambient occlusion. Look at those little that. And here it is without ambient occlusion. Well, that's not a comparison. Here it is without ambient occlusion and the color correction. Here it is with the color correction and the ambient occlusion. Those little things. Anywho, that's an example I want to go through. So here's something a little bit interesting about this as well in particular. And this is where we get out of Blender a little bit. Kind of went over some techniques in Blender, like within the shader nodes, to modify this material. But there are some changes that might just want to be done in Photoshop. Look at what as it was before I started messing with it. That's the original material. So if we look at the sole, we've got this cool band going along the side, the darker color. What I want to do, I want to actually hit right here, open, so I can find where these material files are at. I can copy that directory, find that file, and open it up in Photoshop. So I actually already did so. Take a look at that file. Probably tell already. Basically, the whole image for the shoe unwrapped, right? Which is a common way of packing a lot of visual information into just one file for efficiency. So this works really great for fast renders. Typically, gaming assets are prepared in this way. Limits the amount of files, it limits the amount of memory that has to be allocated by the team that's running it. So here's one that I had modified from the original. Look at the original. This is the original. So it's black sneaker with the white Nike swoosh, some labels along the way. Got some tag applied to the inside of the shoe. Under window. And there's the Nike logo for the inside, and then here is that tag in. I know it's not underneath. Underneath what we have, that is Nike logo in the middle of the sole, right there. Huh. I wonder where that text goes. Maybe on the side of the sneaker somewhere? I'm gonna bring my light. It doesn't matter. Not sure where that goes. A little bit of text. That's fine. The cool thing is, this is unwrapped, right? So if I go to UV editing, working on that portion, set this here. Not this one. They're different too. I will search the Cortez. Hopefully it does not have that in the file. What's in the image file? Called soul. Soul as in two soul. And there's our color band. So let's focus on that image for a second. So looking at the rendered piece, if I hit the soul, hit tab, then hit A, I can see all these images unwrapped here. We see that this is basically, right, that whole soul piece, the geometry, like folded flat. And where these bands lie, here, where they get applied onto the model. The same goes for up top. Look at upper material, upper base color. I hit tab here and then A, all these faces on this shoe. Actually, all those faces unwrapped here. Okay, so it's nice to know how this thing relates to the image. So if I wanted to change something about this part of the shoe, I would have to do that in that part of the image. If I wanted to take this image, start modifying specific colors of specific parts of the shoe, I need this information. So what I can do, real easy, make myself a little working file by screenshotting this. Go back to Photoshop. Paste our screenshot. And line that up. Very roughly. Get to green, so that I can see the Nike logos. White and lighter areas are coming through. Alright, doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. That's pretty dang good. Create a new layer on top. Brush. Hard brush. Fill any color anywhere. Hardness. And let's say I wanted to make that light color. I'll go through. Only color where my selection is, because these are basically all my images. Of course, I do want my brush opacity 100. Hold shift and just click around. The overboard here. Parts that I don't need. So go rough with it. And some of you might say, hey, why didn't you just make that selection and then bucket into it? Well, because I didn't know. Sometimes it's like two ways are just as fast, or just if I were using the Wacom or the iPad, which is what I'm using to Photoshop nowadays, that's also a thing. Going back to Photoshop. Anyway, anecdote. What do we do now to apply that color? Because we're still reading the same image, right? Well, what I need to do is save this file. Oh, actually, I want to apply this to. I want to apply it to the, but I do want to hide that reference layer. Basically, just referencing geometry. So I have my color layer on top of the original. And I have it saved as a Photoshop file somewhere. I'm gonna go back to layout, and here we have our base image. Open. We're going to open, instead of that original PNG, we're going to open our Photoshop file. Now the Photoshop file is not efficient. We do want to ultimately the Photoshop file is not efficient. We ultimately want to export ideally to a JPEG, but we could PNG add. You can see here we actually painted part of the shoe. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's actually mirrored. So the top part of the Photoshop file isn't actually the other side of the shoe, but rather a different part of the shoe. Zooming. I'm going to duplicate this. I think I have to mirror it. Control T, right click, flip horizontal. That match. Okay. I can also do, instead of just having the color on there, instead of blend, probably be better. Turn off our working one. Set it to typically color. Going on top of black is not. Exclusion, that's good. Stitching comes through. I need exclusion. Difference. Difference is probably better. That's trippy. Linear light. Look at that. And let's color a little bit. Together. Folder right there. Create a new layer. Sorry. There. After creating that folder, go to Adjustments, Saturation. Set that as a clipping mask. Color. Lighten that up. Okay. File. Go back here. We rerun our render. Rerunning the render is all it takes to reload the file. We crashed. I'm using Photoshop file for the sake of speed. But yeah, that's basically how I also was able to add in custom decals or stickers that can also be done within Blender. I don't think the last file I will. Open that. Oh, rerun the render. Save this. And maybe lower the quality of my render preview. Not running at full. Okay. Like to load colors. Let's just X. Alright, save. Open that sucker up. We're using JPEG now. Man, something's been going on my laptop. I might need to do all of Windows. Close Photoshop because we did our color change, but we crashed again. So let's just move on to the decals. So we're going to go into texture paint, rendered view, and we'll keep it on material preview and have. The cool thing about the decals or the stickers is we can do a shrink wrap modifier, but sometimes it's better to just kind of paint on the model. Let's say I'm going to add something over here. Have anything. Let's do this. Let's download fine. Sort of vector graphic. Actually, I love this site, ionic.io. Part here that says goes ionic.io/ionicon. Have a bunch of different. So I don't know, something like that's open source. I think like maybe not an X. Or an arrow. Rather. Ooh. Okay. Bug. So we can now run this. And we'll hit N over here in texture paint, so we get our brush, and we can go into our texture, add in a new texture to choose, set it to stencil. So now we go over here on the right hand side, we still have our brush settings over here. We can go over to our new texture we created. Texture. So I'm not seeing an SVG for darkness. Download. That's an Illustrator. Sure. My screen is black. Oh no. That's not ideal. If we can set that. Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead with a fresh install of Windows. I think my brain could use fresh install too. So, the opportunity. Wouldn't it be great? I guess that's what meditation. No signal. Yeah, I see that. I'm trying to solve for it, but it won't solve. I unplugged it and plugged it back in. I don't have any other moves. Something's happening. And now nothing's happening. I have crashed these events. So now it's just me. Alright. So, technical difficulty. Tried kicking it. Yeah, I don't have that kind of flexibility right now. But yeah, no, the laptop has crashed. But let's do this, because there's two different techniques for what I was going to do. So we'll follow up with that on following. And in fact, I'm going to write that down as the video that I'm going to be putting out, because it is the end of the stream. I'll probably cut this part out and post it as its own video. But there's going to be a little bit of a change. So the streaming on YouTube has been great, but something I've noticed about the way the platforms are really meant to be used, or really how they're meant to be used, they're meant to be one way, but really about what ends up being popular for the people when people go to those platforms. So for that reason, I've decided, especially because the purpose of these streams was really for me to be able to get some project work done as publicly as I can with certain parts that I choose to show. And the fact of the matter is, people are fighting for attention on YouTube, and the formats that do best tend to be shorts, tend to be short videos, long format. Some people think it's great and it works great for them. Not what's mostly done, but streams are also sort of events, which is something that is what I want to bring to you. So, starting next week forward, my work session streams are going to have a new schedule, and they're going to move over to Instagram Live, and on YouTube, I will still be doing one stream a week. However, it'll be more of an event, let's say. It'll have different formats, and it'll kind of be like design sprints. So formatted challenges, something that I'm taking on as a creative exercise, probably will align it to something else I have going on. But essentially, doing design sprints on stream for YouTube, that's what you'll see here. And I'm actually going to start other platforms more consistently, showcasing the actual behind-the-scenes work, which is most of what's been shown on YouTube so far. In exchange of not doing these work session streams anymore and formatting some sort of educational component, I will also be working now on dedicated videos on YouTube. I've been clipping up some streams and posting them, but instead of getting 2 streams a week from me on YouTube, what you'll do is we'll be getting an announced challenge that I'll be for a long period of time, so that would be upwards of a 3-hour stream or more, and actual tutorial videos, shorter at first, and I'm building up on a couple of courses I want to do. One around Rhino, and one around conceptual design Python. So yeah, Blender is still very much a part of that. It's not about the software either. It's about the projects, the tools, the content, and etc. But yeah, that is the announcement I owed y'all. A little bit of change in content formatting. I think it's going to be for the better. I am doing it because it's supposed to bring better content to you, something that's more entertaining and something that's more digestible. Platforms. And also, a selfish portion of it too is I think this structure will actually help me a lot more in delivering that. A bit more organized for myself. So, yeah, that'll be it. Thanks, y'all. Generally, keep experimenting, will do. And thanks you guys for the chat. Thank you guys for showing up to the streams. Love having you here. And yeah, it's been an interesting experiment so far, and we'll continue to do so and continue to refine as I go. So thanks for tuning in, and catch you on the next time. Make sure to hit the notification bell for the video if you're not subscribed yet, so you can find out putting out. Catch you next time.